So I mentioned I took this trip up to North City on Friday with my friend Pete Foley. Pete's just someone who's retired, really wants to do some things for the community, has been volunteering with some of the folks up there. And he reached out to me a couple of weeks ago. He says, Mark, if you haven't been up there, you need to go and you need to see this, because it's just sad. And it's also unusual because you'll see some homes that are unscathed right next to ones that have become rubble. And there's, paperwork on every door, if there is a door, saying this is not safe to be in here. So one of Pete's questions, and I don't know what the answer to this is because it's so complicated, but one of the questions is, if we don't do something here and get on top of this and try to rebuild these neighborhoods and give these people who live in the neighborhoods like a sense of purpose and ownership, this is going to stay that way. It's not going to change. It could be a decades-long process. So, I don't know what the answers are, but I wanted to invite Elliot Davis, retired Fox 2 investigative reporter, who is doing some great independent journalism work on Facebook right now. He's been really dialed into some of the recovery efforts in North County and North City. Elliot, how are you this afternoon? Thanks for coming back on with me. I appreciate it.
I'm doing good, Mark.
So, what happens...
Old guy out here in the street.
Yeah, well, I like that you're out there, and that's why I took this trip myself in person, because sometimes I need to get out there in the streets and, kind of see what's going on. And one thing that I didn't see, so we're driving around several neighborhoods. You know what I didn't see on Friday morning? A whole lot of work being done. I mean, there were some isolated homes that have contractors. Maybe they had insurance, but in many of these situations, the homes, were paid off. They didn't have insurance. You've seen some of the, wrecked neighborhoods. What are some of the answers here, Elliot, moving forward? Because this could be something that St. Louis, and we already have our challenges with population and crime, et cetera, but I fear that if we don't get better leadership and a handle on this and maybe some money, that this is going to turn into a bigger problem.
The storm has been a disaster, and the response to the storm has also been a disaster. We have come really to almost a standstill. I'm not going to blame folk, although there are some, but in a number of ways, things didn't get done. The disaster declaration didn't get signed until almost 4 weeks after the storm hit, and FEMA couldn't come in until after that disaster declaration got going, which means the city did not have resources to help the people. The city wasn't prepared for it. Mayor Kara Spencer had a study done on the city's response after the sirens that didn't work, and so people didn't have a warning. We started off bad. We started off terrible. A lot of people didn't even get a warning that this tornado was coming because the sirens didn't work and the people didn't hit the buttons and all of that. And so Mayor Kara Spencer had, I think it was a law firm that she hired because she wanted a study, an investigation done, and she wanted transparency, and I have to applaud her for that. And they did the investigation, no holds barred, and they said the response was abysmal, the response to the storm. Yeah. And you read that. And so everything had a snowball from that. The city was not ready for this thing. So the residents had to rely on private organizations like the St. Louis Urban League to get going. FEMA didn't come in until late. The city was hoping to get the Army Corps of Engineers going. That was taking a long time. They're just now going to get some funds as a result of work by Senator Eric Schmidt, I think $180 million, and FEMA's now agreed to kind of pay 75% of that to start tearing down some of these houses and haul away the debris. We don't even know if that's going to be enough. It's $1.7 billion. Here's the problem. $1.7 billion in damage, up to $2 billion. People talk about the RAMS fund. Well, that's $290 million if you spend all the RAMS fund on the tornado. The state approved $100 million. FEMA has spent, about $48 million so far.
Yeah, it's still far away from the number, right? Yeah.
If you add all the money that they have available, and then FEMA's going to kick in another $180 million, maybe you've got $450 million available from all of that stuff, right? But if you've got $2 billion worth of damage, you still got a long way to go.
Yeah. Did you now see? I mentioned this yesterday a little bit. I didn't really read from it. Did you see the Wall Street Journal piece on all this yesterday?
I actually read it.
Yeah, so let me just share this with the audience a little bit. They feature St. Louis, and we're not featured for good reasons nationally. Typically, it says minutes after a mile-wide tornado struck this city on an otherwise beautiful day this spring, Allie Rand heard her husband shout as he surveyed the devastation surrounding their Tony neighborhood of historical homes. Everything is gone. Rand remembers him saying. So they go through the details of the tornado, and they quote someone saying, I think it's Mr. or Ms. Rand, I've never seen someone from FEMA out here on the streets. And then the article says this is by design. St. Louis is a test case for the Trump administration's new policy of shifting more responsibility for natural disasters to states and cities. City officials and local residents who are still clearing rubble 4 months after the tornado said the experiment isn't going well. So I don't know, what all is involved here. I don't really mind shifting some of the responsibility to the state and the local officials because maybe you have inefficiencies with FEMA. The problem is we seem to be kind of in the the hole here in between what wasn't working and what might work in the future, and we're kind of becoming the victim here. So I don't know what more can be done, because if I hear your math, it sounds like we need another $1 billion, right?
Yeah, you can't do this in the middle of a crisis. It's like the trying to repair the ship while it's sinking. You can't wait until the middle of a crisis and say, okay, we're going to do something altogether different. A number of FEMA workers got laid off. A number of the budget cuts happened with FEMA. A lot of changes were happening. Just simple things like there was a person that I used as my FEMA point man to get information. Now he can't talk anymore.
Really?
He's got to kick it. Yeah, I called him actually again today, but I'd called him before, but I used to call him all the time. He'd be right there, Johnny, on the spot. Now he can't talk. And so they're tightening the screws in Washington. That's impacting the people on the ground who've been doing a good job. North St. Louis looks like a war zone.
Yeah,
it looks
really
like
does.
A disaster area. Nothing really looks that much better than it did right after the storm hit. And I had just what you said. And just what that article said. Essentially, I had one of the residents. I was out there in the field doing a Facebook on it, and they said it seems like everything has come to a screeching halt.
And part of that's because of the bureaucracy. Like, look, even in the Journal article, they talk about this requirement that all spending of $100,000 or more has to go through this process of approval, and it involves dozens of layers of review. So I'm not sure what the answer is. You would hope that Senator Schmidt and Senator Hawley, and I think that they are working on trying to make this process go a little bit faster, but they're talking about, Elliot, $700 million just to clear the debris. That's kind of what I'm talking about. You can't get to a discussion about rebuilding or doing anything else until you clear out this debris, and we got to get that done, whether it takes a combination of private and public, but that has to be done.
And then what happens when you clear the debris? You got a big empty lot. So would you have one good house on the block and the rest is just one huge vacant lot? What's going to be built?
That's a great question. It is a great question. Yeah.
Are there any plans to build anything, to rebuild the neighborhood? They don't have the money for that. So maybe that one house got spared, but that means there'd only be one house on a 3-block area. Because many times you go, and I've gone to these blocks where there is all the houses on the block are destroyed, or nearly destroyed. And so what happens once you tear down all those houses? Then what do you got? A huge empty lot to match a lot of the other big empty lots in the city. And so I do think that the mayor is doing everything she can. I honestly believe that. And I'm not critical of what she's doing because I think she's doing everything she possibly can do. But I think a lot of the changes being made by the Trump administration in Washington, that's impacting the FEMA people on the ground, making their job so much harder, ultimately hurting the people here. Like a lot of people didn't get anything from FEMA. Some people got lesser amount, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000. I mean, FEMA spent $48 million on this deal. They helped 9,000 households, but 15,000, for example, 15,000 home inspections, 9,000 people, 9,000 households got money, 15,000 home inspections. Well, what about the other 6,000?
Right.
Did they get anything? Nope.
Yeah, it's a mess. It is a mess, and it kind of was impressed upon me when I took that tour last week. But you stay on them. I don't blame the mayor either. I think she's in a tough position now with the bureaucracy, but I do hope that, folks like Senator Hawley and Senator Schmidt and members of Congress are trying to push this forward to get us the help that we need. Elliot, great to hook up with you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Appreciate it, buddy.
Yep, take care.
Get more at 971talk.com.